got Cameron Crombie, who is on his way to the Commonwealth Games in a couple weeks here. So Cameron has a pretty lengthy resume here, but we'll go over a couple details. So in 2015, Cameron won the National Para-Rowing Championships in the men's single scull and the mixed double scull. And then transitioned over to the F38 in shot put classification and won a gold medal at the 2017 World Para-Athletic Championships in London, where he now holds a world record. Congratulations, Cameron. And broke the previous record by 37 centimeters with a throw of 15.95. Cameron's a Newcastle boy. Yeah, so Cameron, basically, I figured we'd start off with, you went from rowing, you stepped into the shot put circle. How did that feel?
Look, it was very different. I'd spent about 20 years as a basketball player, growing up, and it wasn't until 2014 or so that I discovered rowing, and especially para rowing. So I mean, that was the first transition for me, and I kind of went from always playing basketball and football and soccer and anything and everything, but predominantly around a team kind of environment. So rowing was almost, it was like a slow transition from, you go from being in a team of 5 people on the court to a boat with 2 people, and you're training sometimes with 2, sometimes on your own. And then, and it kind of, you do have, I guess, difficulty getting used to it when you've just got yourself to kind of try and motivate. It's easy to motivate yourself when you're a part of a crew or a team, but when you're out there on your own rowing for hours on end, it gets a bit lonely. So I guess that was the first slow transition for me. And then going from rowing to shot put was another step further, where it's just, now you're just on your own, and I think that was the biggest adaptation, I guess, for me, other than the technical difficulties and technical differences. But it's training and getting used to training and competing on your own, I think, is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. So, I find with some of the younger throwers, finding a training partner or having a good coaching dynamic is probably extremely beneficial. How did you find that?
Yeah, that's that for me. And again, as I said, I've always been like very much a team player. So I've got a really good relationship with my coach, and he's Hamish McDonald. He's a 6-time Paralympian in the shot put himself. So he definitely knows the ropes, and but he's also a really good guy, and he knows when to pull me into line, but also knows when to have a good laugh. So bounce a lot of stuff off him, and then there's a couple of other guys we train with. So I don't know if you know, obviously Jaden Sawyer. He's transitioning across the shot put as well now, and Marty Jackson from Victoria. Basically, he's come into our class, and he's been a real good competitor. Both of them are really good to throw with. So I guess you got to try and find your motivation and your training buddies other than, outside of just your little environment. You got to kind of enjoy it in competition and stuff like that too. So
yeah, big time. And I think you touched on a really good really good sort of spot there with, your training partners are going to be the guys that you're hanging out with and chatting with, and creating that camaraderie and that teammanship. So yeah, being an individual stuck in a circle for hours and hours throwing a shot. Yeah, I think we've all been there. So on your, you work with Hamish and you get into shot put, and then you set a goal of the 2017 World Para-Athletic Championships. Talk a bit about, how you went through, not the training environment, but more about, how you achieved that goal, and then how awesome it was to throw a world record.
So actually, funnily enough, I stumbled into shot put. I was actually brought across to athletics for javelin, just ahead of the 2016 Rio Paralympics. And I had 8 months to learn. They basically said, "Can you throw javelin?" I said, "Oh, I'll give it a crack." And they put one in my hand, and away I went. And so I had about 8 months, and I in training, I actually dislocated my knee, or hyperextended it, and did a grade 2 tear of my PCL and my hammy, and chipped a bit of the bone, and that basically took me out of walking and took me out of the gym and heavy exercise and throwing for about 2 months. So quickly 8 months turned into 6 months. And anyway, we got into, when it came to classification, we said, "Oh, we need to get you classified." And they said, "Oh, what's that going to take?" I said, "Oh, well, you've got to go through the steps, and then they've got to see you compete. But unfortunately, there's no javelin on this weekend. There's only shot put." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I did it as a kid, just screwing around at school, that kind of thing." And Hamish was still my coach as a javelin coach then, and he said, "Oh, that's all right. It's the comp's on Saturday. I'll teach you on Thursday and Friday, and we'll throw on Saturday. It doesn't really matter. It's just to see them tick a box." And so we had 2 hours of training, and then we broke our Australian record. And kind of went, "Oh, well, we'll come back to that. We don't need to do it just yet." But so that was in January before the Paralympics in 2016, and I didn't actually touch a shot put again until after the qualification period for Rio, so just before the Rio Paralympics. So it wasn't until about September where I actually started training for shot put. So yeah, it was a pretty quick turnaround between September 2016 and July 2017 to basically learn shot put and be a bit more technically proficient. Yeah, that, I guess, it's all fun and games when you don't know how hard and how difficult it's going to be. You just kind of knuckle down, and I guess London was always the goal, but we never really had, a medal or a championship or a world record in sight until we kind of got to the week or the month before, where you thought, "Oh, hang on, this could be possible," So, but I think, as you're saying, a big thing for me was having Hamish. He's incredible at what he does, and he's been there and done it. So I think if you're for a younger thrower, having surrounding yourself with people who have been there and coaches who know what they're doing, and then just putting all the faith and aside in them, and and letting them help you with planning and focus on your goal, and you just get in there and do it. Let them worry about the paperwork and whatnot, and the intricacies of how you get there. Yeah,
I can imagine there was quite a bit of paperwork and planning along the way, considering the
Yeah, so it was a lot of obviously strength and conditioning is a big part of it. So whipped me into shape. Luckily, I had rowing beforehand, so that was a pretty good start. But yeah, it was made a lot easier by the people around you. So you try and find. So and then London happened. So, and that was in itself. I mean, that itself was just amazing. It was an incredible time and incredible stadium, and the capacity and the people there. They just love sport, and I think that for a first time of myself, and I know Marty, first time representing Australia World Championships as well, and yeah, we both loved it. It was incredible. So as far as the medal and the record goes, I still don't. And it took me a few months to figure this out, but I still don't think that's the most exciting part about it. I think that was just the medal, and the world record was just a consolation for all the hard work. What I really get enjoyment and fulfillment out of is knowing that, you snapped your knee and missed out on Rio, and you had all these setbacks along the way. And I think that that gives you so much more drive to keep pushing for the next one, even if you've got a record or you've got a gold. You need to keep setting yourself targets beyond what you're physically capable of, so your mind can kind of take you to this next level. So, and I think, looking back on it, the biggest exciting kind of part of it for me was just actually the weeks in and the months out and the weeks in, and just it's the little pieces that make up the journey, not really the end result. I mean, it's great, but it's not something that you want to sit and go, oh, I'm done now.
Yeah, and that's quite the insight, because I want an Ontario provincial title in football, and I know that's not at the stage of sort of a world para, but that journey was honestly the most fun I had. And then I look back at it and I went, wow, like, look at those accomplishments, and I think for a young thrower, you set those goals of these major events like the Youth Olympics and the Malaysian Oceanic Championships, and sometimes you get lost in the fact that along the way you've got all these setbacks, and instead you kind of got to enjoy them and embrace them. And you bring up an awesome point, Cameron, on that for the younger throwers, is that man, that journey is pretty incredible, and you only do it once, and then you kind of got to keep filtering back on new targets and all that to keep building it. So that sort of leads us into our next section of it is, you've got an economics degree. You work as a real estate agent, and you have a career outside of sport. And I think one of the big things is that as youths, we get lost in the fact that all we want to do is be a sportsman or a sportswoman. And all of a sudden sport's not there anymore, or we've got breaks or setbacks. And how do we pay the bills? How do we make sure that we can still have a good standard of living? And I think the biggest one is, how do we put food on the plate? Especially being throwers, we definitely have a pretty big fridge bill. So how has business helped you in that aspect, and what sort of lessons have you learned vice versa between sport to business and business to sport?
Where do you start? I think for me, sport's always been one of those things where if you would let me get outside the classroom and pick up a ball and do, I would, I'd be the first outside, and but always did well at school. And I mean, that was also, it was a focus because I knew I had to. And I guess I just filtered through to the latter part of I guess now, you've got, I count myself incredibly lucky to even have the opportunity to throw shot put, when I'm 32, let alone, represent your country, and look and be heading towards, the Commonwealth Games and throwing on the green and gold again. So that in itself is just a huge accomplishment. I guess I got to keep reminding myself it's a thing that you got to be happy about. But I'm incredibly lucky to be in that position. But I think you've also got to remember that sport, for the very few people that get to this level and get to represent their country, there's even a smaller amount of people that will make a living off it. And even then, even if they do make a living off it, it's not always going to be forever. As throwers and sprinters and whatever, you've only got a useful life of so long unless you can turn yourself into personality. So, I think it's really important to have something else. And plus, you need time, just as important as it is to have an income and to have a career outside of sport. I think it's also just important to have like an identity, have an escape. Like, you've got to have things outside your sport. So when sport isn't going well, then you pick up the guitar. When that, you're not quite getting that, then you can go do something else, and you can kind of shift your mind around between things that you enjoy that don't overload you too much with, the frustrations of not making a PB every weekend or whatever it may be, But I think long term, as far as how they've helped, it's, man, it's incredible the amount of, I guess, brain power that athletics and sport has shown me is incredible. It's just, rowing was one of them. I remember the first time I was in there, and the first real big race that we had, it would have been, a state championships or a national championships or something, probably a state championships. And I remember being at the front of the boat, 3 people behind you and the cock's in front of you, and she's like spitting in your face as you're rowing back and forward, and she's seeing like every like painful stroke, and you're 250 meters in of a 1K race. And you're out of the blocks and you start going and you're thinking, I got this, and you hit the 250 mark and you lengthen out and you go into this big long drive where your entire body's just like throbbing in agony. And then she goes, all right, time to start rowing. And you're thinking, God, like we're not even halfway through the race. And then you get to the last 250 meters and you're thinking, for the 750 meters before that, you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to finish. And he gets that 250 meter mark and she just goes, all right, now foot on the gas. And you're thinking, where is all this going to come from? And I remember being at the front of the boat and knowing that I couldn't see anyone else, but they were watching my head and my back and my shoulders. So I had to keep the same pace regardless of how much pain I thought I was in and how soon, I wanted to collapse and die. And you find out that you actually go quicker as the race goes on. And that last 250, you're the quickest you've ever been. And granted, you die all straight after that in a heap. But it was the first time, I mean, it's a long story, but the first time I had that real experience of this is what your body's capable of. And it's going to start telling you to shut down. And then your mind kicks in and goes, no, not a chance. I've still got another 250, 500 to go, or whatever it may be. And I think that for me opened up a lot of doors just in my mind for how I train and how I compete. And then I think that follows through to business world. I mean, I'm in a career where I deal with failure every day. I'm in an industry where you basically have to, people, vendors, sellers, whatever, when they pay for your services, they're buying you. So you've got to sell yourself. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, you miss out and another agent walks away with a house to sell and you go back to zero. And in a commission only kind of business where, you've got to sell houses to put food on the table and to pay airfares to go away and all that kind of stuff for sport. It can get very stressful, but I think you've got to deal with failure in business the same I kind of learnt to deal with failure in sport, is that it's just a step in the process. And every time you fail, you learn a little lesson. And then the next time you're like, I won't be saying that again, you go into the next house. And it's funny like that. There's a lot of crossovers between the two, but I think it's really important to have, it's so important to have the money's great. So, that's good to have it behind you, but it's more, I think it's more the fulfillment. It's the people outside of sport. It's the environment outside of sport that you're always kind of learning and ticking over something new. Like I wasn't always a real estate agent, but I'd encourage people just to try something they enjoy, and if they fail, try something else. If they fail, try something else. Because I don't actually think it's a failure, but you just learn lessons. It's just little lessons along the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I hear a lot of stories of, as kids grow up through high school and, VCE comes along, and a lot of parents are like, man, sports, we got to put those on the back burner. And I think, like you just mentioned, is you have to have those outlets and be able to transition between sort of school, sport, hobbies like guitar, motorcycles, stuff like that, because that allows you to keep your energy. I read a little bit on, the bio, so I understand bit into motorcycles. So I figured,
that's it. That's right. Sorry, I was going to say it is that balance. It's the entire if you want to go so much deeper, the reason you put on this earth is, it's not just to do one. I don't believe it's to do one thing for the rest of your life. I think there's so many things and places and people and everything out there, and so many opportunities. Why wouldn't you try as many as possible?
Yeah.
And whether that means, sport is 50% and work is 50%, or travel, holidays are still got to be a thing. They aren't. I'm the worst person to have a holiday and a break. I never do. But one of my coaches, and mentors, always keeps telling me, you've got to take a break. You've got to have downtime. So that's something that'll be a bit more of a work in progress. But
Yeah.
I guess that's another point, just to surround yourself with people that have good energy and feel good about the things that you do and the kind of person you are. And you'll often pick up little points from, different people, as far as, mentors, leaders, competitors. Like, I'll pick up stuff from Marty and Jaden that I go, oh yeah, well, I'll use that next time. Or, they probably don't know that, but everyone you kind of come on contact with has got something to add, I think. So it's, you'd be silly not to at least take some things on board and just add it to the arsenal, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So just on, to kind of summarize all this and let's get on the hobbies a little bit. So, I think the big thing is, each of us has our little niche for outside, and, some of us have, music, and some of us have poetry and all that sort of stuff. So, what's your sort of go-to with regards to music for either band, or what do you like to just sit down and play?
Look, I guess I taught myself to play the guitar about 10 years ago or so. So I don't quite pick it up as much as I like, but
yeah,
it's a bit of everything. I had a really, really strange influence. Well, not strange, it was quite normal actually, I think. But my influence was from my dad and mum. It's Farnsey, Barnsey. If Queen, Rolling Stones, AC/DC, like Crowded House, U2, In Excess, like it was all just a bit of everything. Midnight Oil, and I think, and that progressed into heavier things. Some of my favourite bands are Tool, Behemoth. There's some pretty heavier stuff in there, but I think it's more just accepting things and going, oh, that's different. I haven't heard that before, and you zone in on a little part of the music that you like. But yeah, as far as playing, I just it's more of the campfire stuff, sing along kind of tunes. And again, I wish I had more time to dedicate to it, but things are a bit tight at the moment.
Yeah, big time.
But yeah.
If you had a walkout song, what would it be? Like, if you had one song, man, everybody's got one where they're just like, ooh, man, if I had that opportunity, I really want to hear that.
To fire me up, or?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. You got, World Championships. Cameron's got one song to walk out to. What is it?
Oh, geez. It depends what kind of mood I'm in and what I've been listening to recently. Like, I've been getting back into Tool a lot. And I haven't listened to them for a good 12 to 18 months. So there's little things like that. Oh, I remember that song.
Yeah.
Oh man, I couldn't pick. I'd have to have a playlist with a few on it. Maybe Rolling Stones. Maybe something that gives you something that fires you up. I think I remember seeing the Rolling Stones live, and the first song they played was Jumpin' Jack Flash, maybe.
Ooh, nice.
There's a couple of there's a couple of my girlfriend saying Peter Andre. There's a couple of songs that and I guess when you got a song that takes you into a memory and a zone of being excited, being happy, being lively, I think that may be all you need. And I think for me, I remember seeing Mick Jagger come and then strut his way across the stage, like as the announcer said, and now the Rolling Stones, and they just came out with it. Just a stupidly extravagant intro, and it was just, and everyone loved it from that moment. Everyone couldn't stop jumping around, and all these oldies were loving it, and it was only a few years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, something like that put me in the zone, I think. And yeah, but it depends. It depends what month and what year it is.
Yeah.
I could have listened to a month of Rise Against, and all of a sudden, like that's the thing that I've got in my mind.
But, well, quite the diversity through it. Which you'll probably be happy if that band you keep talking about finally puts out an album after 15 years. If it finally, so Cameron, thank you so much for your time tonight, man, and taking your time out of your schedule. I'm sure that everybody listening can take some takeaways from this on business, life, training, throwing, and on behalf of the Throwing Athletes Forum, myself, huge congrats on making the Com Games team, and we'll definitely be cheering on and watching you in April.
Thanks, Josh, and
go ahead, man.
Yeah, you guys, I really appreciate it, and it's great to see, this little community building up, and you're getting more and more views, and you're putting the time and effort into videoing. I think it's really great. I think it's something that, I hope it really takes off and gets a lot of traction. I think it will. With the effort you put into it, it shouldn't be long.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. And green and gold all the way, man. And hopefully we'll be getting some Tool walkout. I'll definitely be listening to some while you're throwing, man. Just in